What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. With this video, we are hopping into Cable issue number 1, with the Iron Man comics covering the invasion of Orchis. Most of the X titles are hugely focusing on the trial of Cyclops and mutants' attempt for a counterattack, but they decided to take Cable in a different direction. Not really sure how I feel about this just yet. With it being issue number 1, we're definitely going to see where this story takes us, because I'm a huge fan of Cable, and this one has a lot going on in it. The story picking us up with Cable attempting to rescue Kid Cable. So, make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we pick up with Cable going one-on-one with the Stark Sentinel. Now, once upon a time, he could probably take on a Sentinel one-on-one with a single punch. He could probably drop it down and not have to worry about it. But these new models, they're a little more complicated. They need a little more subtlety. This is where we see Cable open up its leg and he climbs inside. Climbing inside, he starts just wreaking havoc. Popping out the top of it, we see this Sentinel go up in flames. Right now, he is breaking into an Orchis facility. He is here to gather some information, but coming in the way he did, he wasn't able to carry a heavy payload. This is where he does something that he doesn't usually do, sparing enough of his techno-organic mesh. He generates a weapon, a massive freaking gun blowing down a wall, letting all the Orchis agents know that you know who I am, you know why I'm here today, you know what I'm capable of. What are you gonna do? And the Orchis agents take off running. Any that stay behind get a fist to the face. But getting in the facility and getting the information that they need through the data dump that they were able to compile, they know where they're hiding him. And so with Cable taking off to a barge, this is where he finds Nathan. He was able to come back to the present before the old man Cable was. Unfortunately, the younger Cable got himself caught. Now, Orchis had recently failed to study the tech and memories of Cable. They thought that Nate's defenses wouldn't be as strong as the older version of himself. As they go through all the data, they see that Orchis was right. Orchis had gained intel on the techno-organics, possibly future timelines, but it doesn't appear to be anything too damning. He takes Nate back to the safe house. As they prepare to go and take on Orchis, to finally take the fight to them, this is when the older Cable says that we got something else we gotta focus on. Because in the data dump, they found something else. A tag that said the Neocracy is coming. A threat that is far more important than the threat that Orchis is right now. After doing some investigation, they are able to find the tagger who did this. In finding the tagger, they are able to find the person that hired the tagger to do so. Modifying the vehicle that they have, they turn it into a taxi cab, and then they kidnap the girl that paid the tagger to make the tag to begin with. And she doesn't hold anything back. She was more than willing to spill any information that she had. The two of them sitting down to have some food. This is when the older Cable is asking the young Cable, do you know anything about these guys? How many timelines have you actually known? And while he says enough, he tells Kid Cable that if you haven't heard of these guys yet, you haven't been to nearly enough timelines. But technically, Cable's never run into them. He has only ran away from the Neocracy. This is when he tells Kid Cable a story of failure, of fighting and losing. He slid into a lot of timelines in his travels. And in a lot of those, the Neocracy was the focal point. Not Sentinels, not Apocalypse, timelines where they do it to themselves. A pharmacy company discovers a way to rewrite their DNA. Human, mutant, inhuman, alien, everyone. Their goal is, was, and will be to end the conflicts born of what divides all of them by making them all the same. Human beings essentially evolve. Everything evolves. Everybody turns into a race of higher beings, of energy beings. more enlightened, unified, at peace. But what it costs is your individuality, a place without hate but also without love, with any sense of life. He never stayed long enough to learn the details of how they rewrite DNA. He couldn't stay, or breathing the air itself would start to change him. They are using the battle with Orchis as a distraction and a starting point. That graffiti tag, that is an introduction to decades of coordinated propaganda meant to prepare them for the new age. And the woman who hired the artist was working for the company that will change the world, Parvenu Industries. This is where we see Old Man Cable and Kid Cable loaded up with guns and ready to make their attack. Cable goes on to say that these guys wasn't a threat in a lot more timelines than they were. Maybe it's because somebody took action. Maybe it's because they acted quickly. Either way, he's tired of being from the future and always running out of time. And so they make their assault. The front desk guard immediately taking off and shutting the door behind him. And so the two of them open fire with everything they have. And in doing so, the alarms go off. As they get inside further, this is when something slimy begins to grab them. What Cable sees is all too familiar. They run the genetic coding. These humanoids, they have human DNA. Slack, Glob Herman, and Random. These guys have already been experimenting on cellular transformation, and it has worked pretty successfully, telling Kid Cable to push out. They use their telekinesis and they burst these things into pieces, but they are quickly reforming. With them reforming, we see the cables, they take off. They move as quick as they can and they move into the cryogenics lab. And here, they're able to freeze these little creations. And this gives them some time. As they head to the mainframe, they start to get as many files as they can, to get as much information as they can. As they go through all the files, they see they have so much information, wondering how a private company got access to government and individual medical records. This is when we hear a voice saying that they did it all legally. Dr. Paul Duvall. Cable is surprised that he's here, but the doctor begins to rip his shirt off. He begins to get bigger. You see, the doctor experimented on himself. He transformed himself. And now they stand before the Gray Gargoyle. And that will be the end of this issue. So a pretty good issue. I'm a little bit disappointed that Cable and Cable are not focusing on Orchis, but they are from the future. They deal with things on a much different scale than the rest of the Marvel Universe would. If this Neocracy is really that dangerous, it's obvious the Cables would focus on them more than anything else. And it's nice to see the reintroduction to the Gray Gargoyle. Not really sure if this is like a soft reboot, or if this is just him in general, because Dr. Paul Duvall has always been the Gray Gargoyle, but it seems more here that they are implying that he made himself the Gray Gargoyle by experimenting on himself using this cellular transformation. Either way, I am excited to see Old Man Cable and Kid Cable working together again. Kid Cable's always been kind of a favorite of mine, if you will. I much prefer his stories, but Old Man Cable definitely got some banger stories out there. You know, I may favor Kid Cable more, but that's not to say that Old Man Cable isn't just absolutely amazing in his own right. Like I said, my only disappointment is this is supposed to fall under the banner of the fall of the House of X, and it's kinda has nothing to do with that. They're gonna be focusing on something completely different, but like I said, it's the first issue. We'll see what direction this goes. We'll see what this does, and maybe it's going to tie into Orchis. Maybe all of this is connected. I mean, we all know that Fei Long would love to get his hands on this kind of technology. But let me know your thoughts, let me know your theories. If you want to get caught up on everything that has been going on with the X titles, go ahead, check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It'll get you completely caught up on everything going on with this series. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership. Much like Patreon, having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to comics every single month. Not only are you helping out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content we have coming out, and until the next breakdown.